So let's really talk about some of the benefits of growing hybrid fall rye and what kind of success you've seen growers have on their farm.
Yeah, so rye is a great rotational crop. I think as we see farms get, larger and larger across, Western Canada and the world in general, kind of a harvest management, seeding management tool. It's a risk management tool. It's a way for people to get farmers to get some acres in a little bit earlier and get harvest off a little bit earlier. So we're seeing some go that way for sure. Another thing is if I look a couple years ago in Manitoba here in the Interlake, we had a really, really wet spring. And we had we had a lot of acres that didn't get seeded that year. And some of those farmers up in the Interlake had some hybrid rye in that year. One grower specifically I can think of had around 600 acres, and that was all he had seeded that entire year because he couldn't touch the rest of his land. It was so wet. And that year we had a good year with rye. It came off, I think it was around 110, 115 bushels, somewhere in there. So when you look at a year where you couldn't get on that ground because it was so wet, but you had something rooted and established and it was taking up that moisture, and you had productive land that year because of that rye being in. I think that's something in some of those areas people are starting to look at. And on the flip side of that, we've got a lot of dry areas in the prairies as well. And we've been in some pretty dry cycles here the last 5 years. And being able to get a crop established in the fall time and get it rooted, rye's got a very extensive root system. So it'll search for moisture. And with rye, getting it rooted and capitalizing on that spring moisture that you get in some of those dry areas is really nice. So it works well for the wet areas, works well for the dry areas. So I think we're just seeing it as that risk management tool where people are going, hey, you know what, maybe we should throw some of these acres of rye in, whether it's a quarter, 200 acres, whatever it might be.